Hello, my name is Greg Loy, and today I'll introduce to you Brian Brightbill and Meredith Guns, who are certified floodplain managers for the town of Kill Devil Hills. Meredith and Brian will be providing information on construction requirements in the special flood hazard areas, storm preparation and emergency response, National Flood Insurance construction standards, property protection, and improvements that can mitigate the effects of storm damage and flooding, all of which can help you prepare for and respond to potential flood events in Kill Devil Hills. In Kill Devil Hills, regulations for developing within a special flood hazard area are found in the Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance, Chapter 152 of the Town Code. These regulations can be accessed online at kdhnc.com. Construction regulations require new construction to be built at least 1 foot above base flood elevation. However, some enclosures can be built below base flood elevation, including storage areas, parking areas, or dry entry. These 3 types of enclosures must be constructed with flood-resistant materials, and flood vents are required. Flood venting requirements and information on flood-resistant materials can be found at the Planning Department. All development within a special flood hazard area requires a flood development permit, and it is issued along with a building permit.
Elevation certificates are required 3 times during a new construction process. These certificates ensure that new construction is proposed and constructed above the base flood elevation. The first is a construction drawings elevation certificate, which is submitted with the application for a building permit. The second is a building under construction elevation certificate, which is required within 21 days of construction of the first elevated floor. The third is a finished construction elevation certificate, which is required at completion of the project and must be submitted and approved in order for a certificate of occupancy to be issued. Additionally, Kill Devil Hills keeps elevation certificates on file. Come by or call to get a copy before you plan your next construction project or before you purchase your property. There are multiple publications by the Federal Emergency Management Agency to assist homeowners and contractors with building in coastal areas to minimize loss. These publications are available at the Kill Devil Hills Planning Department or can be accessed online. There are also regulations that apply within specific flood zones. In the VE flood zone, the Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance requires 1 foot free of obstruction below the first elevated floor. This area can also be enclosed with lattice or screening, which will allow overwash to move freely under the house and minimize damage to the structure. A V-Zone certificate will be required in addition to the elevation certificate. A V-Zone certificate is completed by a North Carolina design professional and will certify the development meets the minimum standards of the VE zone. Within the AE zones, fill material may be used to elevate a lot to meet base flood requirements. Structural fill materials may not be used within VE zones, and 1 foot free of obstruction applies even if the lot is above base flood elevation.
Some structures within the special flood hazard area are considered non-conforming, which means they don't conform to the current flood damage prevention ordinance. There are many non-conforming structures in Kill Devil Hills. There's a couple reasons, but the most common were flood map changes that place an existing structure within a different flood zone with a different base flood elevation, or an existing structure may have been built prior to Kill Devil Hills entering the National Flood Insurance Program. If you need to know whether your house is non-conforming, come by the Planning Department and we will help you. If you own a non-conforming structure, because of flood regulations, you can still make improvements or repairs or repair damage to the structure provided the project does not exceed 50% of the value of the structure. If a project is over 50% of the value of the structure, it's considered substantial damage or substantial improvement. If the damage or improvement exceed the 50% of the value, the structure is required to be brought into compliance with all regulations of the Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance. Fortunately, there are several federal programs that homeowners can use to help homes meet compliance standards, such as increased cost of compliance coverage under the Standard Flood Insurance Policy. ICC coverage provides payments up to $30,000 to meet current state and federal floodplain management ordinances. ICC coverage can help with the cost of elevating or floodproofing, demolishing or relocation of a non-conforming structure. You can get additional information at the Planning Department or online at www.fema.gov. We also have multiple publications at the Planning Department to help you with retrofitting your structure to help protect your property from future flood damage. A big part of preparation is education. Please teach all your family members, including children, about flood safety and hurricane preparedness. The Kettleville Hills Planning Department is here to help. Stop by or call to receive information about flood zones and check and see if we have an elevation certificate for your property on file. Fact sheets, brochures, and publications from FEMA are available and will further teach you about flood hazards and the opportunities you may have available to minimize your risk. This is especially important if you're considering building or buying in a flood zone.